Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to be doing some hot foiling and some stenciling. And we're going to be making this elegant fall card. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start off with the infinity dies. This is the heart-shaped die from Hero Arts. And for paper I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. That's a 100-pound weight. And I've grabbed the largest of those heart dies. I'm taping that down with a little bit of purple tape, and I'll run that through the Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. Now I've got my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station, so I'm going to just tape this down, and then I'll grab this beautiful Echo Park 6x6" stencil, and this is from the Fall Fever collection. So let's go ahead and position this down. I moved this around quite a bit before I decided exactly where I wanted that to be. And then we can go ahead and just lock that into place using these magnets. Once that's all set, let's grab the Scattered Straw Distress Oxide ink from Tim Holtz. And I'm using a little sponge dauber to do my inking because I want to add multiple colors. Now I'm going to the Crackling Campfire. And these other two colors we'll also be using are the Aged Mahogany and the Peeled Paint. So again, I'm using that little sponge dauber so I can add more than one color inside each of these little openings for these leaves. And then I'm going back to that lighter color and blending that out. So now let's use the Scattered Straw and the Peeled Paint to do this next one. And you do want to start off with your lightest color first and then work into your darker colors. So if you're using 2 or 3 colors, you want to go from light to dark. And then go back to your lightest blender to do your blending. But you do want to clean it off in between. You can see I'm dabbing it onto a towel there because it will pick up some of that darker color. So with your lightest dauber, you should always go back, just kind of blot off any extra color that you got on there before you do your blending. Now I've got that Aged Mahogany and the Crackling Campfire. So I'm just mixing and matching these colors together. I'm just trying to get a nice variety of fall colors. And you see, I can go back to some of these little openings with extra ink. There I added a little bit more of that Aged Mahogany to that leaf on the right. So you can kind of step back from it, take a look at it, and you can always add more. And here's where I did decide to bring in some of the Rustic Wilderness. I didn't think that green had enough shadowing to it with just the peeled paint, so I'm bringing in the Rustic Wilderness to darken up the edges a little bit. And I continued doing this for all of these leaves, so I'm using just those 5 colors. And then what we'll be doing is coming over top with some embossing powder, some clear powder, and that's going to seal these colors in, and that will allow us to do some more blending on top of these leaves that we've already created. So I'll show you that here in a second, but for now let's finish up adding some colors. And I'm creating a congratulations card today, but this design and these colors could certainly be used for your Thanksgiving cards, or even for a fall anniversary or a fall birthday card. This process of adding these colors I find to be really fun. It just makes you feel very creative. Just take your time, add your colors, kind of sit back and see if you want to add more. I just find this process to be very relaxing. So let's finish up these last few leaves. And again, when I was positioning the stencil, I wanted to make sure I had leaves that go right up to the edge and look like they're going off the edge, so that the pattern looks like it continues on. So that's all I was doing there when I was fussing with the stencil, just to make sure that it completely covered this heart. I'm going to darken up that last little leaf there, and then we can remove that stencil. Now I want to wipe this down because we're going to be placing it back over top of the heart. So I heat set that very quickly, And now I'm laying that stencil right back down. So I'm lining it up exactly where it was before. And now here's where we're going to add that Versamark Watermark ink. So this is a clear embossing ink. So as I mentioned before, we're going to go ahead and emboss these leaves. That's going to lock that color in. So I've patted on some Versamark Watermark ink, and you do kind of want to use a patting motion when you're doing that. And now I've got some clear embossing powder, and I'm going to sprinkle that all over. We'll just tap away any excess there, and then I'm going to grab my heat tool and heat set this. I did have a little bit of powder there where I didn't want it, so I'm just using a detail brush just to brush that away. Now I can go ahead and heat set this, and you'll see that when it starts to emboss, it's actually going to brighten up these colors a bit, and they're going to have a nice shiny texture to them. They'll almost look like they're glazed, which I just love that. Now you could certainly leave it just like this, but we're going to grab that antique linen distress oxide ink, and I'm going to apply that all over. Now you want to make sure that this panel is nice and cool after you've done your embossing before you start brushing on your inks. So I just waited a minute or two there just to make sure it was nice and cool. Now I'm going over top of all of these stenciled images, and now I can brush away any excess that's sitting up on top of that embossed area. So by using a dry towel, you're just going to buff away any ink that's sitting on top of your embossed leaves. Now I've got some gathered twigs distress oxide. I'm using a bit smaller brush just to go right around the edges, just to define this heart and give it a little bit of frame around the edges. And I'll go back again and just buff that off with my dry paper towel. Now to bring this panel together, I'm going to do some spattering. So I've got my gathered twigs. I've just pressed some of that down onto my mat. I've sprayed that with a little bit of water from my distress sprayer. And I'm using a small paintbrush because I want these spatters to be fairly tiny. And I'm going to spatter this entire panel. And again, that's going to kind of bring all these together now. I'll quickly heat set that. And then you do want to buff away any of those little spatters on top of your leaves. So I'm just kind of targeting those leaves with the dry paper towel and just buffing off any excess, just so it doesn't rub off on your fingers when you're finishing up your card. So now I've got a piece of craft cardstock. That's also a 100-pound weight, and I'm going to just die cut another of those large hearts, the same size as the one we already done, and I'll just glue those two together. That's just going to give this a little bit of substance. Now let's cut a panel that's 4 inches by 6 inches. We're going to be doing some hot foiling with our Spellbinders Glimmer plates. I'm using this beautiful one with the hearts on it, and this is the scattered hearts background. So what I've got here is my Glimmer hot foil system, and you want to make sure that light is green on the left there so you know it's ready to go. It's just going to heat up and turn green when it's ready. Now I can place my Glimmer hot foil plate right down onto this platform. And I've got some Glimmer hot foil. This is the variety pack, so I'm going to grab that pretty gold. And don't forget, I'll be listing and linking all the products I'm using today down below and also on my blog. Now I've got the foil plate facing up. I'm placing the foil down, so pretty side down. And then I've got my cardstock, and I'm just lining that up towards the left-hand side. I'm going to be foiling this 2 times. So I've got the thin shim and the spacer plate. I'm placing those 2 right on top of that cardstock. And we'll remove that from the base, from the Glimmer foil system base, and then I can go ahead and run it right through the Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. So let's go ahead and remove those plates and that foil, and you can see how pretty that is on this craft cardstock. Now I want to do the other side of this. So I'm just going to slide that Glimmer foil plate over to the right so that I can do the rest of this card panel. So I've got that leftover foil. I'm going to place the Glimmer plate again off to the right. I'll put the foil face down on top of that plate. The green light is now on, so we're ready to go. And I'm just going to slide this around a little bit till I get it lined up where I need that to be. Remember, I don't need all of this remainder of the cardstock. I just need a small portion of it there. So I've got my two plates again. I'll remove this from the Glimmer foil system base and again run that through the die cutting machine. So let's go ahead and look at that finished card panel. Now you can see that there's a little bit of overfoiling there. I will show you how we can take care of that here in a second. But first I want to go ahead and run my sentiments through. So I'm using that magnet that comes with the system just to move that off to the side to let that cool. And then I've got these pretty sentiments here, again from the Spellbinders Essential Glimmer Sentiments set. And these are hot foil sentiments. I'm placing the congratulations down. I've got my foil, which I will lay again pretty side down. And then I've got my cardstock right on top. I'll put those two plates back on. And again, run this through the die cutting machine. Now I did do another sentiment off camera. I did Love Always off camera. And because I really wasn't sure what kind of card I was making at this point. So now we can remove that foil and you can see how pretty that is. Now again, there's a little bit of overfoiling, so I've got my sand eraser, my mono sand eraser, and I'm just going to erase any of that excess foiling. And this comes off really easy. It's not like you have to really scrub away at it. You really just kind of lightly sand over the top and then just brush away any of that excess foiling. Now I've got some banner dies from Lawn Fawn, and there's that Love Always that I had also foiled. But again, I end up using this congratulations. So I'll grab that banner die, tape that down with a little bit of purple tape, and then I'll run that through the Sizzix Sidekick machine. And then I did the same thing for that Love Always. Going back to the gathered twigs and that small blending brush, I'm going to go all around the edges of this card panel. And I'll go around the edge of my sentiment as well. So let's grab some layering cardstock. I'm using the Carta Welcome Fall Coordinating Solid Paper Pack. This is a 12 by 12 paper pack, and it's got these really beautiful fall colors, and again, it is a double-sided paper. I'm going to grab a couple of these for our layers, and I'm going to go ahead and create the card base first. So I've got a piece of cardstock here that measures 7 inches by 10 inches. And I'm scoring it at the 5-inch mark. So we'll have a 5 by 7-inch card. So this card is a little bit larger, but I wanted it to be a little larger and a little more elegant. So let's go ahead and use our Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. We'll add some adhesive. This is going to fit exactly onto our card base. And then I cut a second panel out of some green, and it's just slightly smaller. And we'll just center that on the card. So that'll give us a nice little border of that burgundy color around the edges. And then this panel will sit right in the center. So I went ahead and glued that down, and now I've got my 3D foam tape, and I'm going to cut just a strip of this just to pop up this heart. You could certainly just cut up some small little chunks of this, but I'm just going to remove the backing from the front and the back of the tape, and then I can just wrap it right around that heart. And then we'll go ahead and center this up towards the top of the card, and that'll give us a little bit of dimension. Now I've got the congratulations, and I did decide to pop that up as well. So here's where I was trying to decide between love always and congratulations, but I decided to go with the congratulations. You could always put that love always inside the card, so you may want to foil a second sentiment for the inside of your card. So I'm just cutting down that foam tape again and applying a strip of that along the back of our little banner. And then I'll just center that kind of down towards the bottom of this little heart. Now let's grab some Pinkfresh Studios metallic gems. These are the matte gold. And I like to just lay them out first and then go ahead and glue everything down. And I move them around several times before I get to the point of actually gluing them. I like to just use all different sizes. And that little collection has 3 different sizes of little gems there, so it makes it really nice. Now for a sentiment, I'm going to use that happy anniversary on the inside of my card. And that is a clear stamp set from Stampendous, and I thought that happy was nice and bold, so I'm going to emboss it on the inside of the card. I'm using my Pink and Main anti-static tool just to take the static out of that paper, and then I'm just prepping this stamp with my fingers a little bit, just rubbing my fingers on there to take away any film off the back of that stamp because it is so thick and bold. Now I've got that clear embossing ink again. I'll press that out with my stamping tool, and we can go ahead and emboss this. Now this time I'm going to use some gold embossing powder, and that's going to coordinate really nicely with our foiling and with those little gems that we've put on the front of the card. So I'll heat up my heat tool. I'm going to make sure it's nice and hot before you go to your cardstock, and then I'll heat set this. And you can see that nice, thick, bold, happy. It just really makes the inside of the card pop. So now I can go ahead and brush off any of that anti-static powder. That is the Nuvo Surface Sweep Brush that I'm using there. I use that a lot just to remove little debris, dust, and particles off my cards. I like to use it on acetate as well. Now I'll just glue that right on the center of the inside of the card. So let's take a closer look at the finished card, and you can see that beautiful foiling we have on the background and on our sentiment. And then I love that stenciled embossed area there. Just so pretty. I love those leaves and how that stenciling and embossing really makes it pop. And so I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.